Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. I want to talk to you about three main subjects today. Number one is the latest updates from the ground in Gaza. Secondly, more developments in Lebanon. And thirdly, the meeting, the summit that the Russian government will hold for the PLO, including Hamas and the PIJ, who are not still members of the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization. I'm going to start off with Gaza. We're still witnessing a lot of battles in the north. We're having all of this talk about the south and Rafah. They can't hold themselves in the north, Israel. Hayy Zaytun, Gaza province. Al-Qassam brigades posting videos again of them targeting Merkavas and Yassin 105. Mortar shellings on soldier gatherings, and they direct hits, like they published videos of Israeli helicopters and military ambulance trying to rescue and evacuate the injured and killed Israeli soldiers. So it's not backing down. They clearly haven't dismantled these brigades up in the north to even talk about Rafah. I'm not sure if it's a distraction from Rafah with regards to Israel getting more activity done in those areas. However, they're still being fought, and the resistance is still there over the ground. All of these battles that we've seen today, everything was from buildings in North Gaza, and that was just from Al-Qassam brigades, by the way. We haven't seen any recent publications, as in the last few hours or today, from the other resistance movements. It was mostly Al-Qassam brigades. That's when it comes to Gaza. When it comes to Lebanon, Israel still had attacks in multiple parts of South Lebanon primarily, and Hezbollah's using the BURKAN again. It's become a regular thing for them to use this heavy BURKAN missile with a warhead weighing up to 500 kg. This missile causes a lot of damage, like in whichever base it's launched at, where it lands, there's a lot of damage. So they attacked 4 Israeli bases, at least one of which was with a BURKAN missile. That's when it comes to Lebanon. It's still very much intense as well. Which leads us to Russia. So historically, Russia has been more open to all of the Palestinian political movements, including Hamas, despite the labeling of Hamas as a terrorist organization in most Western countries. They've had their previous political bureau head, Khalid Mash'al, and they've had multiple delegations of Hamas across many years. And the recent meeting they had with Hamas was during this genocide. They invited a delegation to Russia to discuss the potential ceasefire and all sorts with regards to Gaza. Their recent call is bigger than that. They're trying to do something, Russia. So they're excluded from all of the attempts of the US and Western countries, and obviously they're not involved directly when it comes to the ceasefire talks in Europe or in Cairo or in Qatar, because obviously the US wants to control these things, and they want to have the ultimate say when it comes to what happens to Israel. However, they are attempting to do something, and that something they're attempting to do is unity between the Palestinian political groups, which is a very difficult task. And I say that for many reasons. Obviously, the organization, the PLO, that they're inviting alongside Hamas and the PIJ, by the way, it's an umbrella organization for the Palestinian political movements. However, it does not represent the majority of the Palestinian people. It always excluded Hamas, despite them winning the elections with a big majority. It doesn't include the PIJ, again, represented by many Palestinians. You know, they support the PIJ too. And There were calls previously to refresh the PLO, to absorb Hamas, PIJ primarily, and make it unified. However, the PLO, for its global recognition, they had to do certain things, and the certain things that they did were not necessarily for the benefit of the Palestinian people. So, for example, when you talk about the resistance, the only resistance the PLO talks about is popular non-violent resistance, even when you're under occupation, despite the fact that international law grants you the right to conduct armed resistance against your occupier. They don't want any armed resistance. The recognition of Israel, the safety of Israel. So most of these things that the PLO is concerned about when it comes to Hamas are not related to the Palestinian people. As a matter of fact, they're against the benefit of the Palestinian people. When you're talking about recognizing Israel, not having armed resistance, dealing with the security services of Israel, making sure that they're safe. Well, what about the safety of the Palestinian people? And this division obviously was highlighted and became more intense after 2006 and the feud following the Fatah rejection to accept Hamas winning the elections that I spoke about in some of my previous videos. However, Russia is trying to do something, and everyone is going. And to be completely honest here and fair, I'm not sure how successful that attempt would be. Number one, Russia doesn't have a big standing when it comes to what's happening in between the conflict, really, between Israel and the Palestinians. And they are not involved in the negotiations in general. So this could be potentially a move from Russia to show that we have some sort of involvement and we are able to do something where the US and Western countries have failed when it comes to the negotiations with Hamas and obviously the mediators to try and reach a ceasefire. However, the fact that it's being conducted in Russia, the fact that the Palestinian political movements are meeting, it could potentially be a positive sign. However, for anyone who is expecting something to come out of it, we're not expecting much, especially because of the gap. I mean, you're talking about a very, very big gap when you're talking about the PLO and the Palestinian armed resistance movements. I mean, obviously, we would love to see unity, united front against the occupation, against the brutality. But when one side is showing a strategic position of recognizing Israel, of accepting the occupation, of delegitimizing the resistance, and not just delegitimizing the resistance, actively participating with Israel against the Palestinian resistance, arresting people who resist Israel, in many cases also assassinate them. Like if you talk about the West Bank, for example, how does Israel reach most of the wanted people? Is through collaboration with the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. And even when we're having this meeting, you had the Palestinian Prime Minister in the West Bank, Shtiya. He's saying that there are things that Hamas must do when it comes to joining the PLO potentially or having this unity. He said, obviously, we want unity, but Hamas need to do certain things. The things that he's talking about are again linked to Israel more so than the Palestinian people. When you talk about, he mentioned obviously that their strategic resistance is only like civil resistance, not violent resistance. You're talking about a completely opposite view when it comes to Hamas. And unfortunately, when it comes to the Palestinian Authority, they haven't been able to amend this position simply because of the level of collaboration that they have with Israel and this ongoing strategic partnership, which I find quite absurd personally when you're talking about the PLO and a Fatah movement led by obviously Abu Mazen now, Mahmoud Abbas. They've been negotiating for over 30 years now. So you could have an argument to support this position if we saw any achievements on the ground, like if you've had more Palestinian independence, more Palestinian rights, some sort of statehood. Things could have been different, but the fact of the matter is, throughout these 30 years of negotiations between the Palestinian Authority and Israel, all that we've seen in the West Bank is constant expansions of the settlements, ongoing violence from settlers, ongoing killing from the Israeli forces, from the Israeli occupation forces, ongoing misery, ongoing checkpoints, increased restrictions, and an implementation of an apartheid system from Israel, a full-on apartheid system, particularly when you're talking about the West Bank, that is being completely supported by the Palestinian Authority because they're enabling it. If you are talking to a side that's causing all of these problems with you, you're an enabler, and there's so much you can say or argue against it when so many things are happening on the ground and you're taking a strategic position of non-violent resistance, obviously, against Israel. This isn't to say that violent resistance is the best thing, obviously, but when you're talking about a reality where brutal occupation exists for such a very long time, it's a natural human response to resist this occupation, resist the war against you, resist being killed, resist being assassinated. It's human nature, and this human nature is being suppressed. And that difference is obviously going to cause a lot of frictions and will potentially leave this summit unsuccessful like so many previous summits. So this is the main thing that I want to talk to you about today. In my live stream tonight, I'm going to be talking about Netanyahu's revealed plan for the day after in Gaza, alongside very important things. I'm going to be analyzing what he said, how realistic it is on the ground, what we should really be talking about. So join me at 9:30. Members and subscribers can participate and also ask questions. I'm going to be sharing some of your views as well. And I will hopefully see you soon in the next video. Take care.